Millennials define luxury as an experience. So how do you sell them a product?
Are you ready? All right, let's go.
Manufacturing is sexy. Sounds crazy? Just wait. I'm Z Holly, host of The Art of Manufacturing. Your behind-the-scenes look at how people who make stuff are trying to make it in their industries. If you've ever wondered how to build a brand, a business, or just a better mousetrap, tune in and enjoy. Augmented reality is a big buzzword these days, but most companies are focusing on creating the content. But this week's guest first focused on the hardware side of AR. We're talking with Ashley Crowder, the founder and CEO of VNTANA, who's known for these really cool holographic projection systems. And if you haven't seen them before, just imagine you're a life-size version or greater than life-size of your favorite artist that you can sing and dance alongside. Or you could serve tennis balls to Roger Federer. So I was eager to talk with Ashley for two reasons. First, I thought their technology, frankly, was pretty cool, and I wanted to learn how they developed it and how they're manufacturing it. But I also wanted to get her insights on the future of AR and VR and how brands can best leverage these technologies. And in the end, I learned that this technology, the hardware side, was really just the camel's nose under the tent for a lot of really interesting things they're doing behind the scenes. I was really interested by how they're evolving into a full platform that works with anyone's hardware. And we learned how she's leveraging technologies like data analysis and AI, motion capture, and facial recognition to engage more deeply with customers. We hear about that and a whole lot more on this week's episode of The Art of Manufacturing. I want to hear the story about your trip in Asia. Would you tell us about this?
Oh my God.
Sounds like a boondoggle.
We bootstrapped for a long time in the beginning. And when we first started, Steve Aoki was actually one of the first DJs who was really interested in this. And he said, it's great, but I don't want to do it in America. I want to do it in Asia. And we said, no problem. I did engineering school at USC. I had so many friends from China, Korea, Singapore. Ben, my co-founder, had backpacked around Asia for a while, had friends. We're like, oh yeah, we'll just go sign up nightclubs to buy your live stream. It's no problem. So you already had the product already at this point? This is pre-hologram. This is when we were doing the audio and the light show and selling it. And we went to 104 nightclubs in 42 days between Singapore and Japan on $5,000, including flights. We were staying in
Both of you?
Yes. We were staying in awful places in a really good friend's apartment in Singapore. And we actually got clubs to sign up. But then we got back, and that's when the artists started changing their mind, and they wanted something more than just audio and a light show. And that's when we started pitching holograms. And they said yes. So
very cool. So did you end up installing it in these nightclubs?
Not in the nightclubs, but we do a lot of work in Asia still. Yeah. And it was really great to kind of build those first relationships. And we actually have really great investors in China. So Vector Ventures in Hong Kong and Trojan Ventures in Shanghai.
Nice. Your elevator pitch. Describe your company.
Yeah. So VNTANA is an end-to-end solution for premium mixed reality experiences with data collection to really quantify that engagement.
Whoa, that's a mouthful. What does that mean? So give me an example of some of the implementations that you have.
One of the best examples is Lexus. We did a hologram experience at Staples Center where you could build your own car. So you can pick your colors and see yourself in the car. But then I know exactly what car you want. And we track all that data and send it straight to their CRM. So we actually have more than doubled their qualified leads at all the stadiums we've done for them now. So it started with Staples Center, and it was so valuable. They've expanded it to now, I think, 12 stadiums, and it's been over a 2.5-year contract.
What is the experience like? Like, this is a holographic projection, right?
So we have patented hardware that projects holographic images. So you don't have to wear anything. Everybody in the room can see and interact with that hologram together. So it's not, it's the opposite of HoloLens where you have to wear that headset. This is great for public spaces like stadiums and malls. And we make it interactive with IR sensors tracking your gestures so that when you wave, the hologram waves back, or when you choose your color for your Lexus, it changes automatically with your hand motion. And then also voice commands. So we can recognize your voice. And if you ask the hologram a question, he or she can respond back. And then all of that's through our cloud platform. So we're tracking everything while you do it. We have facial recognition built in, so we know your age, gender, and even sentiment. Age and gender is great for understanding demographics, and sentiment is helpful for product preference. So I know you're happier looking at a blue RX than a red LC for Lexus.
How are you measuring that sentiment?
We have a camera built in that's grabbing your image, sends it to our cloud platform, and then we have a few different options. So imagine VNTANA as the spoke of a wheel, and we can connect with all these different technologies. So generally, for brands, we're using Google's facial recognition. They're great. We also have a bank we're working with, and they have invested tons of money in amazing biometric authentication. So it knows it's me, Ashley Crowder, and will give me access to my bank. So when we have a hologram for them, we just are sending the photo to their cognitive services to determine that.
Wow.
So VNTANA is kind of the hub that collects that information in real time and determines where to send it.
So how much of this is custom? Let's say if I were there's so many layers to this. I don't even want to start. But there's what's really fascinating. There's two pieces I think that's very interesting. One is the actual manufacturing of this product, and then there's also the piece of using this product and using augmented reality and data and all these, chat bots and AI and all this to sell your product and to brand your product.
We started with hardware. We built the hardware first when we started the company 5.5 years ago, and we were doing hologram concerts and hologram products for companies. And they wanted to be able to engage consumers and track data. So that's when we started building out our cloud platform. But yeah, the hardware comes in all different sizes and shapes, and it depends on what you want to do. We rent it for events. We also sell it and do permanent installations, whatever you want to do with the hardware piece. And then what content do you want? So most of our clients are to have one of four goals. They want to engage consumers at an event or public space and increase social sharing. So for clients like NYX Cosmetics, we did, you got to see your hologram live, and hologram sparkles were flying all around you, and you got a fun hologram video to share on Facebook. Because it didn't happen unless it's on Facebook, right? So that's one type. Another is leveraging endorsement deals. Mercedes-Benz has Roger Federer. He's very busy during the Open, but we let him play tennis with 8,000 people via hologram, which increased their engagement by 20% from past years.
All right. So entrepreneurs are told, though, that they're supposed to focus. This sounds like, you're not as focused as others might be. I mean, how are you
but our
balancing
product is all the same. So it is our same cloud platform and software paired with our hardware. And it's all the different client use cases that they can use it for. So what VNTANA is enabling you to easily create these mixed reality experiences with data collection. And all of that is standard. For us, we could take out Roger and we could drop in SpongeBob SquarePants. We did that for Nickelodeon. And you could throw a ball to SpongeBob instead of Roger.
So do you provide really robust tools for the customer to use? Or do you do the custom integrations or both?
So we've built the platform to easily do this, and we're actually be opening it up this year so our clients can build it themselves.
Ooh, that's exciting.
So it'll be DIY. Yeah, which is really exciting. So imagine kind of the Adobe of mixed reality.
Have you figured out the pricing on that yet?
We're working on that. If you are interested, send me an email.
Okay, cool. I want to get back to the technology behind it, but just tell me the story about how it all started. How did you come up with the idea in the first place?
Yeah, it was pretty random. I love music. I play the piano and had a lot of friends who were DJs, and I was still working somewhere else at the time, but started live streaming DJs who were friends, just help them out. And no one was making money selling records anymore. They were only making money doing shows. And so I said, hey, you could do 10 shows at once. Let's just live stream high quality audio, recreate the same light show. No one really cares if you're there. And that's where we started. And we got the attention of Paradigm Talent Agency, who was like, you're printing money. We make 10% every time our clients play. That's great. But we want holograms. Can you do that? And I was like, yeah, that's great. great. So I called Ben, my co-founder, and I was like, I have good news and I have bad news. Paradigm Talent Agency and Nikki Romero want to work with us, but we need to figure out holograms.
What were you originally proposing?
So we were just doing high quality audio and recreating the same light show for the DJs.
I see.
And then we sold a hologram, so we had to figure out how to do that. And we pulled it off in June 2013, and then kept refining the hardware and making it better. And our very first advisor, Jim Bemke, is an IP attorney who was very helpful in filing immediately for those patents, and really just kept building from there.
Maybe I'm just nerding out about this, but the whole idea of holograms versus holographic projection, because when I was an undergrad, I worked at the Media Lab on holography, which is a very specific thing, using interference and really creating this 3D representation. Is this holography?
No, I'm so glad you brought that up, because holograms have been the definition by the media is all over the place, right? So 8i is a great company. Media says they're doing holograms. They're not doing holography. They are taking 3D body scans of people and creating a digital file that could be used in augmented reality, it could be used in virtual reality, and it could be used in holography, but it's not being used yet. The Prince projection at Super Bowl, people are calling a hologram. It wasn't. It was projection mapping on a sheet. So true holography or in light field projection just is not possible yet, and definitely not in a cost-effective way.
Right?
Yeah, and you can't do live, can't do interactive. You're very limited in size and color spectrum. So the most affordable and available solution today is holographic projection, which is basically a perfectly clear screen, and you can project an image onto it in a few different ways. At VNTANA, we've built a system that's patented that is very easy to set up, tear down, has the smallest profile of anything on the market. So it's built for events and pop-ups and to fit into smaller spaces like retail and stadiums. And then our secret sauce is in the interactive software and the data collection, which is we're the only company that does that.
Cool. So the experience is, it's like you see the person who's there and you can interact with them.
Yes.
And they're not really there. And it's live.
Exactly.
So that's the whole idea.
Yes.
That's behind it. Okay, cool. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about, let's go back in time. You said that you have an engineering degree, and what inspired you to go into the engineering route? Tell me a little bit about your career.
You know, I always loved building things. My dad was an electrician and ended up starting his own construction company, so I would ride around his truck on the weekends to job sites and just, got really into building things through watching him. He had never gone to college, so I was asking friends, parents advice, and they said, you should put engineering on your resume because there's not enough women engineers. It'll help you get in. And so I did that. And then I got into USC engineering and got a small scholarship, and they're like, it's actually harder to do this. You should try it. And so I did, and I loved it. But yeah, it was a really funny way to pick a career.
That's crazy. And then you go from that to doing entertainment and augmented reality and all this stuff. So how'd you end up being an entrepreneur?
I always wanted to start my own company since selling granola bars on the bike trail as a kid. I was always
the bike trail.
I was always selling something. My co-founder and I actually met because we both were importing glasses from China on the side and selling them. And we had mutual friends and they were like, who does this? You need to meet each other. Always had some side hustle, I guess. And just life happens. That a lot of things were happening and made me decide, do I really want to keep going this existing career? Do I want to just try and start my own thing? I had no kids, no boyfriend, no mortgage. It was kind of like now or never.
You had a career, though, in engineering as an engineer,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
what were you doing?
I worked at Northrop Grumman for a bit on the F-35 project. And then I worked at British Petroleum at the refinery in Carson for 3 years.
Did you enjoy that?
I learned a lot.
So the answer would be no.
It just wasn't my passion.
Yeah.
I'm still good friends, actually. I still have great friends at the refinery. The refinery is a 24/7 place, so you get very close very quickly because you're on call 24/7. Things happen. You got to figure out how to solve it.
What'd you have to do?
So I was the NGL planners. There's 4 refinery planners: oil, diesel, gas, and NGL. And it's a constant, everything's kind of moving down the pipe. And if a fire happens and something breaks, the tanks on the left are going to keep filling up and the tanks on the right are going to empty, and both is really bad. So we would constantly, when things happen, have to figure out how do we get the product out? How do we move? How do we keep the refinery running safely? So it was constant, tough problems to solve, which I loved that. I work well under pressure. Oil just wasn't my passion.
Fancy that. All right.
Yeah.
What'd you learn from that, though, that you could apply to the because you're a manufacturer. You do the assembly
Yes.
yourself. Tell us a little bit about where you manufacture, where you assemble, what that process was like putting that together.
Yeah, I mean, BP and Northrop did teach me so much, just like hands-on manufacturing and how it works in real life versus a textbook. So we actually manufacture everything in the U.S. except for LEDs. LEDs we get overseas. We assemble everything in our warehouse in L.A., but we have some great partners that we're looking to move to as we start to get orders of hundreds and thousands at a time, which is really exciting problem to have. So we kind of put those steps in place to start moving it outside of our facility.
But you still want to do it locally or domestically as well?
Yeah, I mean, domestically is just easier. You have more control over your product. And also, it really only makes sense to go to China if you're doing tens of thousands at a time. If you're not, the cost benefit analysis isn't really there.
So tell me a little bit about what it was like to pitch this idea to VCs, because you're VC financed, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is not a typical VC
Not
play,
at all.
right? So how did that conversation go?
Oh my gosh, it was so hard. Most VCs, they want you to fit into a box because they raise tons of money on enterprise SaaS software, or they raise it for specifically hardware to help computing platforms. They're raising money from people for a specific purpose. We don't fit into a box. We have hardware and we have an enterprise SaaS software platform today. So we don't fit into a box. So in the beginning, we found some great VCs who, Tilt Ventures, they came from hardware. So they understood hardware. They also understood how we could use the hardware almost like the razor blade model to sell more and more software. So they just got it.
They got it.
And they didn't have as many restrictions as maybe some other VCs have on what they are planning to invest in. Vector Ventures is one of our other VCs who's great, and they're based in Hong Kong, and they really saw the potential for this technology in Asia. And with their help, we've worked with Cisco China, and we have an installation in Guangzhou for them. And we're doing more and more with them out there, which is great.
What was your first investor meeting like?
I'm sure it was awful. I mean, you learn as you go as an entrepreneur. I mean, we did as much research as we could on investing, and neither of us had raised money before. So we Googled, we talked to entrepreneurs, we talked to advisors, but there's nothing like going through the experience and learning from that. So I'm sure my first pitch was terrible, and I'm still working on it. So.
Yeah. Think back on the early days, actually any of the days. What was the hardest time? Did you have a moment where you're like, oh my God, there's no way that we're going to succeed?
I think in the very beginning, when we were bootstrapping for a long time, I mean, the constant worry is not having enough money to invest in the company and accomplish what we want. Ben was living in the office. I would crash there and rent my apartment on Airbnb for extra money. Like, the struggle was real. But those were also the crazy fun days, So I think being an entrepreneur every day is totally different. And there's amazing days when you make a big sale and you see people engage with your technology and are so happy and it's so exciting for you. And then you have days where you get a million no's and the client hates it and something, everything goes wrong. So it every day is just so different.
Sounds like it's having the partner is really critical to balance that out.
Yeah, I mean, I applaud people who start companies on their own. Ben and I have been a great partnership. We're like brother and sister. We're completely opposite, which is why I think we end up at great solutions, because we're coming from two totally different perspectives always. But that balance is so great, because when I'm having a terrible day, he can pick me up and vice versa.
Totally. Oh my God, it's just bringing back memories. I remember thinking about sleeping on the floor. Like, I remember going to Comdex, which was the big computer conference at the time, all over Vegas, and literally were rented a hotel room outside the city. So we weren't even on the Strip. And it was like me and my 2 dude roommates and their friend, the guy, like all sleeping on the floor and like in one room.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's weird how you look back on those days and they seem like the best of times. And you think, well, I guess in retrospect.
Yeah. Everything was fun in retrospect. And yeah, we always say one day we'll write a book about our Asia trip because that was interesting.
Well, don't forget how hard it was. I think a lot of times entrepreneurs look back and they don't remember how hard it was. And so they encourage people maybe when they shouldn't be encouraged. You're listening to The Art of Manufacturing. Follow our adventures on Instagram and Twitter at Art of MFG. And to chat with other like-minded creators, join the Art of Manufacturing Facebook group. We'll be right back after this break. I want to give a shout out to Happily, a nationwide network of the best freelance event producers, coordinators, and assistants. They can take on the biggest or smallest of projects. They're a sponsor of the Make It monthly talks, and I've personally worked with the team on everything from high-level strategy to nitty-gritty on-site logistics, and they're great. If your company is looking for long-term or last-minute support on events, go to makeitinla.org/happily, and you'll get a 30% discount on your first 6 months of membership in 2017. We're speaking with Ashley Crowder, founder and CEO of VNTANA. She's pioneering a way for brands to use mixed reality experiences to engage with their customers. So let's go back to the augmented reality, AR. Mm-hmm. Could you give some advice to our listeners, like if you're a brand or big manufacturer, small manufacturer, whatever, like how can you use AR, whether it's your system or another one, to really build your brand? Where do you see the future of AR going?
Yeah, I think it's definitely in engaging consumers in meaningful ways. And it is the future of advertising. I mean, millennials define luxury as an experience. So how do you sell them a product? And then you have Gen Z, who are digital natives, who demand the latest and greatest in tech to communicate with them. So AR and VR is the best way to do that. You know, none of them are watching commercials. They stream everything. No one's looking at billboards. So we are seeing brands invest more and more in experiential marketing, which according to the Association of National Advertisers will be a $740 billion market by 2020. There's a huge market that people are not talking about. And at VNTANA, we're providing the backbone to create those AR experiences and automatically track the data so we can make it actionable. So it's allowing, it's leveraging your endorsement deal to let all of your consumers engage with that athlete or that celebrity, all branded by you, but in a fun way, and then learn from that experience and follow up with them and make a sale. Because at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line.
And I think what's cool about your system is that a lot of times people, I don't know, I find that AR and VR is still really hampered by the headset and the fact that, especially VR, there's this wall between you and everyone else. So it's not a social experience. Whereas what you're doing is you're creating, it's a thing, it's a person or an experience that everyone can share at the same time.
Exactly. And they all have their best use case. Mm-hmm. But we always say, we built hardware because we had to. We were talking about malls and stadiums, and no one wants to wait in line and put a headset on at those locations. So we built hardware where, as you said, everybody can participate together in a group. That's not to say VR, if you are a real estate company and you want someone to walk through their new apartment, VR is perfect for that. Mm-hmm. And we have people, there's still a lot of education in the market to happen. So we have people that come to us all the time, and if they tell us they want to show someone a room, I'll straight up say, you don't want our tech, you want VR, call our friends at VR Playhouse. Mm-hmm. It's still a pretty small industry, which is great. We're always kind of helping each other. But it'll be exciting as the tech gets better and better, and it is no longer AR versus VR versus holograms. It's just going to be a spectrum, and you can choose how much digital you see, which will be so exciting when we're there.
That is really cool. So tell me about obviously you have certain proprietary IP, but how does the system work? I think it's kind of simple. The hardware piece of it is relatively simple, right? Describe what that setup might look like.
If you've been to Disneyland Haunted Mansion, it's based on the same principles. At Disneyland, they have a big piece of glass, and they're using a projector to project an image, and it looks like that ghost is floating there. So what we've done is we basically took that to the 21st century. So we created our own proprietary blend of plastic. Working at the refinery, NGLs are plastic, so there is a connection. And it's basically a perfectly clear screen. If it was stretched in between us, you couldn't tell it's there. And then we created a frame system to easily set that up. So a lot of structural engineering went into that to keep it light and strong. And you could set it up in 30 minutes, the frame. And then we're using LED technology instead of projectors. LEDs are just much, much brighter. You're going to get a crisper image. You can do it in brighter environments. And then to make it interactive, we're using IR sensors. So there's Connect, there's Intel. If you have the iPhone X, you've got one in your phone now, which is so exciting for us. And that lets us track people's body movements and trigger things based on that.
What's the hardest piece of selling to your customer?
The hardest part of selling is if they cannot come and experience it in person. And we have done a number of sales where people don't see it till they buy it, which is still pretty amazing to me. But when we have potential clients come into our office and experience the technology in person, they all say, wow, this is amazing. This is so much cooler than watching the video on your website. And we're like, I know, because if it's a good hologram, it just looks like a person. So
Otherwise, you could just use the TV screen.
yeah. And so I think that's the hardest thing about what we do. But we have really great Microsoft is a great partner of ours, and we're actually working to put more of our displays into their centers. So we'll just have more places with this tech that people can experience in person.
It is such an exciting time right now with technology and this intersection between the digital and the physical. And you're at that sharp end of the stick on this one. And I think it sounds like it really depends on a lot of partnerships, right? And you're pulling in other technologies. You're pulling in AI. You're pulling in like motion detection and facial recognition and all. It's like, how did you develop those partnerships? Because if you're a small little startup, it's hard to get the attention of some of these companies, right?
Yeah, stalk people on LinkedIn. Seriously.
Yeah.
That is how our relationship with Microsoft started.
Really?
Friended people who worked at Microsoft on LinkedIn, saw they were having an event in Santa Monica, so I went and I met Shayna Houston, who's amazing. She's one of my mentors, and her job at Microsoft is to meet new tech startups in the community and help them connect with the right people in Microsoft. So that was really where that all started, and that's been an amazing 4-year relationship now. So don't be afraid to reach out to people. 99% of the time, they want to help you.
How did you know who to reach out to?
Oh, I mean, I've had friended like probably 100 people from Microsoft, to get to Shane to finally meet the right person. So.
Nice. I'd like to get to the kind of the process of innovation, because you have pivoted so many times. I don't know if it's so many times, but you're really not pointed in the same direction as when you started. But that doesn't mean that you went in the wrong direction. You just had to start somewhere, right? So tell us about that arc and how is that innovation process?
I think it's so important to talk about your idea and listen to your clients. So many people have an idea and they're so afraid to share it that someone's going to steal it. Execution is everything. Do not be afraid to talk about your idea and get feedback. And then for us, we were doing hologram concerts, and every hologram concert was paid for by a brand. And so we said, okay, why are you guys paying for this? What do you want to do? And it was really talking to them and listening and then iterating. At VNTANA, it's funny. Everyone has very strong personalities. We all come from, a very diverse team. We come from all different backgrounds and perspectives, which actually we argue a lot. And there's a good way to argue that gets you to the best possible solution. Like, we throw every possible solution on the table. We all argue our viewpoints, but in a positive way. So we always say, never say no because there's not enough memory. No, because this. Instead, change that to yes, if. Yes, if we add RAM to the computer, that's possible. Yes, if this. So we try and solve the problem as we're talking about it. We're not going to shut people's ideas down. And I think that is so important, because as one entrepreneur, you're not going to know all the answers or even know where you're going to end up. It's going to be your clients and your team that lead you there.
How many people do you have in your team?
as of this week now, 11 full-time. And we've got about 50 contractors who are trained on how to install our equipment, and they're distributed across the U.S.
And so your staff, how are they distributed across kind of more the manufacturing assembly, the design, the engineering, the IT?
It's mostly, we're mostly a team of engineers. So a lot of software developers, and then we've got 2 full-time operations people who manage all logistics and assembly. And then we've got a number of local contractors that are trained on how to assemble. And we'll do like big assembly runs, and then we'll be done for a bit. So we'll just hire them as we need to. And it's been a way for us to scale as we go. So we haven't had to raise as much money as a traditional hardware company.
What does that product evolution look like, though? You talk about that it was important and you're taking in all this different pieces of technology. You were first doing events, right? And then where did you go from there?
Events were great because investors hate them, but they pay you 50% up front and 50% on the day of the event. So it was such a great way for us to self-finance building this tech in the beginning.
That's like a dream to get paid in advance. It's like, wow.
That's why I'm like, why do investors hate events? Because they don't want events coming. You have to, events are hard to win. You got to win each one. There is no recurring revenue, but it's really helpful in the beginning. We still do events, but we've done more and more long-term leases and permanent installations, which then come with recurring revenue for software and content. And what's been great about our platform is the data really provides real value. So with Lexus, we started as a 2-week event. And they were like, wow, you have increased our qualified leads so much. Let's turn this into 7 months and let's add these. So 75% of our revenue last year was reoccurring because it started with one event maybe, and then it turned into a permanent installation and a year to 2-year contract.
Interesting. And then where did you go from there? From events, what was next? What was the next iteration of the product?
The same thing on an event can be a permanent installation, but I think where our innovation is going is how can we make this more and more interactive and a more authentic interaction.
You're still doing events then?
Oh yeah, we still do events. If you would
you sell the system?
Yeah, we rent and we sell, so we'll do both.
Got it.
Whatever you would like.
Interesting, but it definitely feels like I could see how I could see that, and investors would feel uneasy because they're not used to. It feels like a very custom kind of a solution as opposed to something that's just turnkey or off the shelf or just subscription model, which is just seems a lot easier.
What's great is we've built it in a way so it might seem custom, and there is some customization to it, but we've built it in a very modular way. So would you like rent or buy the hardware? Which size would you like? And we have our standard sizes. And then what do you want, an AI hologram? Here you go. And it's totally different for what your chatbot knows, but it's plug and play for us. Or do you want an interactive experience? And the branded experience, of course they can get custom, but we're working with a lot of existing assets. So for Lexus, they have a 3D car model. We're not creating that. They have that. For Marvel, we did a hologram Doctor Strange, and the cape is from Disney, and the portal is from Disney, and it's our interactive software. So it's not as much custom work as you would think.
How long would it take?
Team.
Like, let's say if I'm a big brand that says I want something for South by.
Oh, it's great. Every year we get a client for South by like a week out. Happened again this year. So we can turn things around in 5 days. We can be really quick. The bottleneck is bigger brands go through a lot more approvals of creative. So it's not necessarily our time, but we're going to make something and it's got to be approved by these 7 people and they're all going to have minor changes and that needs to happen. So we love to have 6 to 8 weeks to do a project, but yeah, we can do things quick if we need to.
Got it. I always like to ask people, what's your 16-year-old self like and what would she think about you now?
Oh, I think she would be really proud. My 6-year-old self was very competitive, so getting straight A's in school, was very focused, but I was a very serious gymnast. So my personality is like I focus on one thing and that's what I do. And like I wanted to be an Olympian and I worked out 20 to 30 hours a week from kindergarten to like
Crazy.
be a gymnast. And I'd come home and I would be doing like backflips off the couch to practice. Like that's all I did. So that was me at 16. And then I shattered my elbow and I was like, oh, I can have fun. I could go to a party. What? Like, so.
That must have been a really odd transition.
Yeah, it was tough. But looking back, it was one of the best things that ever happened because it made me open my eyes to, again, I'm such a focused person. I don't know if it's like the opposite of ADHD, but I just get something in my head and like, that's what I'm going to do. So it was probably a good thing that all happened the way it did.
I would invest in you. That's a good attitude to have, the tenacity. Amazing.
For better or worse.
I know. So what is your advice? Like, what's something that you wish you had known when you started your company that you would advise another entrepreneur?
So many things, but
it doesn't have to be just one.
There is no one person that will make you or break you. So in the beginning, we had some employees or some advisors that we thought were going to be great, and then it didn't work out, and we were afraid to let them go because, they knew people. No one knows that many people. And if it's not working out, it's better to just cut it early because the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be and the worse feelings are going to get. So yeah, no one person can make you or break you. Same thing, like the first time we did that Nicky Romero hologram, Ben and I were like, we did it. Why is no one calling us? Like, shouldn't people just call us and know this happened? So, they say an overnight success takes 8 years.
Yeah. You've done a lot of really exciting things. What's the next thing? You're about to announce, and by the time this airs, you will have launched something new, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we just launched the mobile hologram take home. It's pretty cool. So whatever interactive hologram experience a brand is doing, you get an email and you can put this piece of hardware on your phone and you can actually see your own hologram on your phone. So a true hologram selfie, which is fun.
That's cool. I was actually thinking of something different. It was a big brand. You're going to do something like exercise, sports.
Yes. So this, it's a global athletic brand, is actually going to be the first client to use these hologram selfies. So it's launching their spring-summer collection at Adidas, which is so exciting, and it's going to travel to all their main stores.
Awesome. And so I'm just curious, like, what do you see? What is success for you? What's the big vision for the company in 5 years or whenever?
We see mixed reality as the internet before there was a way to do digital advertising on the internet, right? There was no way to easily track data and connect with people. So we see VNTANA building that backbone to do that within that 3D space. And so you can do it with our hardware to do holograms today. We are display agnostic as of this year, so you can have that same interactive hologram experience on HoloLens, building the Lexus car. So we see VNTANA being that advertising platform throughout AR, VR, mixed reality space.
Yeah, so that holographic projection is just the camel's nose into the tent. Nobody knows what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
That's how we make money today, and tomorrow is really exciting.
Well, is there anything that manufacturers can learn from what you've learned? Because it does cost a lot to manufacture goods. What might be a good lesson to take away from that?
Minimum viable product. Everyone talks about Lean Startup. It's such a great book. That's what we read when we first started, and really just build the bare minimum, and it's probably the maximum money you have, but build the bare minimum and then go out and test it, because no one wants to be Juicero. The startup, they
tell that story.
They raised $120 million and they built this amazingly smart juicer, but I guess they didn't do enough product testing, and they were trying to sell it for $700 and no one wanted to pay $700. And then they were selling the packets of of the fruit for $5 or $7 a piece to put in the juicer, and people realized you could just squeeze the packet and like get the same juice. So it was just they didn't talk to their customers enough and know what they really wanted.
I know, having been an engineer, and like how easy it is to over-engineer things.
You get into a rabbit hole, and I get it, and you're like, no, but I can make it this.
So the people
better.
who I'm laughing at are the investors, is they didn't do any due diligence. It's pretty crazy.
Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, maybe they're all like avid juicers, and I don't know. I don't juice things, but
there's actually a really good article. It was a whole like breakdown of the juicer. I should, if I find it, I'll put the link on. But they looked at they broke down the whole product and then showed how over-engineered every single little piece is and why it was so expensive.
Yeah.
Anyway, crazy. Yeah. Okay, minimal viable product. Yes, definitely. Yeah, lean startup. I mean, I think a lot of folks don't think that it's relevant to manufacturing, but it's not necessarily the case.
It's so relevant. I feel like it's the most relevant to manufacturing because otherwise, even more so. I mean, I was talking to a woman the other day who started a bra company, and I'm blanking on the name, but she was telling me the minimum price. You know, it's in the $5 million to get a manufacturer in China to do a run because their clients are Victoria's Secret and Macy's, and you know, if it's not a big enough number, they don't care to do it. So how do you build something and show proof of concept before you have $5 million?
Mm-hmm. That's why local manufacturing can be helpful.
Exactly.
What does it mean to be in LA for you? Like, is that something that has helped shape your company?
Very much so. I mean, I think it's been great to be a company in LA. We started out very entertainment because that's what's based here. And that was kind of the low-hanging fruit. The community, the tech community is really great. It's smaller than San Francisco, but I think in a good way. So people are still very willing to help and make introductions. And particularly being an AR, VR company is great because all the studios are investing in AR and VR because they saw what happened to the tech or the music industry, and they don't want to be left behind, which is awesome. And then we have this amazing group of talent because all the studios have 3D artists, and you need 3D artists for AR and VR. And we also graduate more engineers than any other city in the country. So it's been great to source talent.
Cool. So how can people reach you?
You can go to our website, ventana.com, VNTANA. The name comes from window in Spanish, or even this view into this other place, this other world. But we are in LA, so there's lots of window companies called VNTANA, so that's why we had to drop that E. We were not trying to be cool. But yeah, our website, and of course, Facebook or Twitter, VNTANA Live.
Awesome. Really cool. I love the very many facets to what you're doing. And it really is, things are changing fast, and it's neat to see you at the forefront of that. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. It's been so fun.
Okay, you guys all know how every episode I pick 3 takeaways from the conversation. But I have to say this week is, there's just so much going on here. So it's kind of hard. Firstly, I was surprised by their business model. When I first saw their demo many years ago, I was really impressed by the user experience. It was just plain cool. But what I didn't realize was they were creating a whole platform where any company can be developing the user experience and collecting the data, and they're hardware agnostic. And it can be really tempting for a company to think, oh, this is going to cannibalize my hardware sales, and so we don't want to be enabling these other companies. But they realize that hardware is only a very small part of the potential. And in general, as they're bringing on all these other technologies, which is really impressive to me, things like the AI and the motion capture, the facial recognition, it's going to be those kinds of design tools that are really powerful to enable anyone to create and to tap into the power of those technologies. And so they're really creating that, the picks and shovels of this big revolution, this growing market. I was really impressed and it just blown away by the size of the market. I wrote an article 5 years ago for Forbes about the future of experiential marketing and predicted that it was going to be a really important shift. But I had no idea, and I'll include a link in the show notes, but I had no idea that it was going to be $740 billion in such a short amount of time. So that's really exciting to me. And I think that they're going to be taking advantage of this huge growth by making it accessible to more brands. Second, I loved her quote that execution is everything. It's a good reminder to entrepreneurs to share and get feedback as much as possible. And I really liked her attitude towards iteration and evolving the product. Most people think the concept of lean startup isn't relevant to manufacturing, but ironically, that's where lean startup came from. It was from lean manufacturing. And in fact, because of the high upfront costs and the capital expenditures in manufacturing, coming up with a minimal viable product is probably more important than ever. And finally, I love Ashley's leadership style of yes, if, rather than no, because. A lot of people have probably heard of the improv concept, yes, and it's a really powerful concept that allows people to build on each other's ideas in a kind of a brainstorming kind of an environment. What I like about the yes, if is that it takes it a step further. Throughout the whole process, it tries to figure out and tries to define what's necessary in order to do something groundbreaking and to make something happen. And so it's a pretty profound concept. And I think that idea comes from her deep experience in real engineering roles. Because frankly, when you're running a plant in a refinery, you need to always be problem solving, and there's no excuses if things go wrong. Time to wrap it up for The Art of Manufacturing. Tune in next Thursday when we talk material science, communications, and space with Felix Ejechem of Akash Systems. Felix has developed a new composite material using diamond that might just change the potential for agriculture, communications, national security, and maybe even diplomacy. Find out how. This episode was recorded at the We Are LA Tech Studios in Santa Monica. For show notes, visit www.artofmfg.com. Follow our adventures on Instagram and Twitter at artofmfg. And to chat with other like-minded creators, join the Art of Manufacturing Facebook group. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on iTunes or Spotify or your favorite player. And if you like the show, do us a favor and leave us a review. Or send us a message with your thoughts and ideas to feedback@artofmfg.com. This podcast is produced by At Large and Dangerous in collaboration with Make It in LA and other partners. Visit makeitinla.org/connect to sign up for local LA events and news. A big shout out to Peter Brandenburg, the producer and audio engineer. Thanks for listening to The Art of Manufacturing. I'm Z Holly, and remember, don't just make it, make it.